Hello, I'd like to talk to you about my horrendous ordeal at the Royal Gwent Hospital, part of the Aneurin Bevan Health Board in September 2017. On the 18th of September, Brian was admitted with a chest infection and later we both learned he had low sodium. The lack of care, or should I say ill treatment, was appalling. He was dehydrated to the extreme. Some days, especially the day he died, he had under 400 mils of fluid. He was not given food regularly, and when it was there, it was placed so far away from him he couldn't reach it and was not assisted. Furthermore, I was not allowed to assist. Brian lost 2 kilograms in 5 days. This is in the notes. The fluid balance charts were falsified and the CEO was admitted and apologised. The staff were too lazy to fill them in, so they made them up. On the 25th of September, a week after his admission, I arrived on the ward at 2 p.m. to visit and was asked to see the doctor. I was ushered into a small room where there were 4 people: Martha Scott, the doctor, Nicola Marsh, ward sister, John Trezise, and another woman. They falsely accused me of giving Brian unprescribed furosemide. This was so false. 1, it was prescribed. 2, they had given it to themselves on the 18th of September. And 3, Brian took his own medication, and he told them so. It is written in the notes. He denied that I ever gave him medication. I was also supposed to have tampered with oxygen, another wild, frivolous allegation. Due to this, I was told that I could only visit the next day for an hour, between 2 and 3, and had to leave with Nicola Marsh. Brian was upset and so was I. On the 26th of September, I was too scared and intimidated to go in, as I'd felt so threatened. I witnessed Marsh throw his water away, and when he protested, she flipped him on the arm. This is in my affidavit. I had to leave with her, and she muttered under her breath something called dolls, which I then looked up. This was depriving him of liberty. The next day I was supposed to stay away. Little did I realise that I would never see him again. He did say to me, "We have little time." On Wednesday, the 27th of September, Brian was ringing me several times. He was asking me to get him out of the hospital. But he was fit enough to walk around the ward and use the phone. He kept saying that he had to come home. He wanted to come home desperately. I spent the lunch hour with Kay Clark and Susan Jarman, 2 good friends, who were aware of the tense situation at the hospital. He made the last call at 3 p.m. and he was abruptly cut off. I later found out that at 16:25 he was given an injection in error. The hospital finally admitted this in their report, and they admitted it was a mistake. He was dead within 90 minutes. No one informed me. I was then demoted from next of kin, and Brian's brother, to whom he barely spoke, was promoted. The brother was told that I had given him unprescribed furosemide, as was the coroner, which was actually held by the Ombudsman to be extremely prejudicial to me and a serious injustice. Due to this, the brother asked for a post-mortem, which revealed a tumour the size of a tennis ball in his esophagus. The CT scan he'd had 30 days earlier had been apparently clear. Was it the wrong scan, or were they just totally inept at reading scans? This tumour was undoubtedly the cause of the low sodium, but I was blamed. I complained about the neglect, and because of the human rights aspect, I stated that his Article 2, 3, 5 and 8 had been breached. Article 2 is the right to life. Article 3 is the right to fair and human treatment rather than inhumane. Article 5 is the right to liberty, and Article 8 is the right to a family life and privacy. The hospital whitewashed their report. The Public Service Ombudsman upheld all my complaints, and they held that there has been a serious injustice. serious failings to both Brian and myself. There were also concerns noted by the forensic examiner. Firstly, the delay in diagnosis of the cancer, and that it was not picked up on the CT scan of thorax. Failure to give fluids. Accused of giving the deceased medication and excluded from the ward. Fourthly, the injection given at 16:25, which was temporarily associated with the final collapse and death. His opinion was that where there are signs of a ward in trouble, accidental administration of drugs as a final event, shouting at relatives, making wild accusations, managers should therefore be involved and investigate and provide additional staff till they can sort themselves out. The concerns noted by the Public Service Ombudsman of Wales, the delay in diagnosis, this was a serious injustice to both of us. The wild allegations against me were unfounded and made without proof. This was a violation of their own hospital policy to deny me visiting, and it was a breach of Article 8 to Brian, who so badly needed a visitor. Going through much later the notes, I found a do not resuscitate order, which claimed he was confused, how convenient, and had no relatives. This was observed, as relatives were in the notes, and he was found to have had capacity the day before to discharge himself. I found many falsified notes, in particular typewritten, untimed sheets added to the notes, and these were directly contradictory to the written contemporaneous notes of the day. They were typed by Nicola Marsh. This is said by the CEO, Judith Paget. I was supposed to have made a phone call to the ward, but that was impossible from my phone records, and also it was impossible as I was sitting actually on the ward with Brian in the contemporaneous notes. Another was a fictitious meeting discussing an Ian, the wrong name, obviously typed hastily and in error, when I was actually with my solicitor, and I was later with a Cardiff MP but they've both written into that effect. I also found a dole's form, which was filled in on the 26th of September at 14:10 by Nicola Marsh. The dole's form denied him his freedom, Article 5. This was illegal because it was done without a capacity test. It was again fraudulently filled in because it was full of false information. Brian wanted most of all to leave, and he wanted me to visit. This was denied him, and he died alone. He died alone, and he was isolated from anyone. There is another sheet where Brian's complaining that he has no fluid and that I must visit because he knows, will give him fluid. The Public Service Ombudsman describes how the misdiagnosis denied him valuable time with his loved ones and was a serious injustice to us both. Also, the unfairness of the treatment of me, the visiting, denial, that was a breach to him and to me. Dying in solitary confinement, the cruelty aspect, these are all offences under the Criminal Justice and Courts Act, Section 20, and also under the MCA. I will update you on what happens, but these are very serious events that have happened at the Royal Gwent Hospital, and I am not the only person. There were witnesses, and furthermore, there are scores of people who've had serious injustice at this hospital. Thank you so much for listening.